that lucrative, why doesn't everybody do it already? Well, we've learned, for the most part, the main reason most people don't do it is because they just don't know enough about it. You either don't know it at all, or you don't know enough to feel comfortable investing your own money in, right? And part of the challenge in trying to learn tax lien certificate investing on your own, as some of you have discovered already, is that tax lien certificate investing is different everywhere in the United States. It's different state to state. In some states, it's different in each county. And in some counties, it's different on each type of land. That means, yeah, there are thousands of variations to this. Not just the variations in how it's done, but also the terminology that they use for it. Place to place can be different. Okay? Now, knowing that, I don't point that out to intimidate anybody. It's just so you understand why it's so hard to get your questions answered when you're trying to do things on your own, unless you're investing in an area and learning from somebody that's invested in that specific area. What's great to know about what we can cover here today is the core foundation. Because as long as you understand the core foundation in which this works, how it works, the basic ins and outs, that core foundation is the same everywhere. What you need to focus on, because you'll know you can go place to place, and this part of it's always the same, what you need to be aware of are the differences in each area. The variables that may be different. I'll make sure you're aware of what to look into when you leave this room, so you'll be able to say, okay, I know this part's always the same, but these are the things I need to look into that may be different area to area, all right? That's what we'll focus on to get us started, so we have a foundation here today. Now, barons, they were the first to talk about it in the modern era, but they weren't the only. Over the last several years, pretty much every place, and that may be the reason you're here today, now it's because you've read some of these reports, but pretty much every place you get your financial news from is probably reported on this in one way or another. Everything from magazines like Forbes, Fortune, and Entrepreneur that you see up here, to news networks like CNBC, MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News have all done in-depth reports on tax and investing in the last few years and how phenomenal it is. And of course, traditional newspapers like the Boston Globe, Washington Post, New York Times, LA Times, even the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times have done in-depth articles on tax and investing and how phenomenal it is today. And that's why I congratulate all of you for taking the time to be here with us today, especially on a Sunday, to learn this stuff. And I just put it this way, if you can get them all, put it this way, when was the last time anybody in this room saw CNN and Fox News agree on anything? Right? Thank you, it's my best joke, by the way. But they do agree on this, and if you can get all these different financial experts to agree on one form of investing, it's great for you to be here to at least learn it, so you have the opportunity to decide whether or not it's for you. That's up to you to decide once you get as much information as you possibly can, and we'll just put you on the right path for that. Now, as you know, tax lien investing is a form of real estate investing. And how many of you have ever heard the statistic that more millionaires have been created through real estate than anything else? Anybody ever heard that before? Okay. They say specifically in the United States. They also go on to say that even though we know that's the number one pathway to financial freedom in the United States is through real estate, most Americans don't invest in real estate. They know that is a statistic too. And in helping people learn this over the last 7 years or so, throughout the U.S., I've been to almost every state in the U.S. doing this. I've also been to multiple countries where many times English is not the first language. I've learned that no matter where it happens to be, to a certain point, human nature is human nature. And what I mean by that, when we're investing our own money, these tend to be the biggest hurdles that most of us have to overcome to go out and invest our own money. That stay the same no matter what. Now, just as a side note here, the reason we've been able to teach or to help people discover tax and investing in other areas outside of the U.S. is because for well over a decade, you have not had to be a U.S. citizen, nor have you had to live on U.S. soil to invest in U.S. tax and certificates. They say the number one investor of U.S. tax and certificates in the last 5 years is China, not the U.S. And I don't say that in a negative way because I've taught in multiple countries. I share it with you because it's that good of an investment. If you have investors from all over the world looking to invest here in this, that's why it's great to take the time to learn it and have the opportunity to go out and do it. That's what's beautiful about it, all right? Now, the best way to overcome fear is what we're doing here today is just learning, right? Understanding the ins and outs, the basics will help dissipate the fear. And then once you understand the basics, it's actually seeing it done. I'll cover as much of that as I possibly can here today. And then, of course, you have to go out and do it. And I always suggest at least the first couple of times to have some point of reference, whether it's a coach, a trainer, a mentor, or another investor, help walk you through it so you don't make mistakes. That'll get rid of the fear very quickly. Just like anything else, the first time tends to be the hardest, then it comes easier from there. And it's something that you're going to want to do more than once because you want to continue making money, right? It's a continuous way to make money. Can be a passive investment in a sense too. Now, obviously, you have to put in some time to learn. Would you all agree that we all learn in different ways, yes or no?
Yes.
Some are visual, some are auditory, some read, some do all those things. I've also learned that we all learn at a different pace. I'm jealous of people that learn quickly because I don't. I was too prideful to admit that for a long, long time. It hurt me in a weird way in that sense, but I've learned that I learn through repetition. So everybody's different. I bring it up because I can't judge what your time frame is to learn this. I'll make it as simple as possible, but you know yourself better than I know you. But I'll make it as simple as we possibly can. Now, if you want to make consistent passive income with tax and investing, you need to commit some time, obviously, to learn it and then to do it. And all it takes is maybe 30 to 45 minutes a day. That's it. It's not a ton of time. That's something that's feasible for everybody. But I'll share with you what to do during that time frame. And the reason I say 30 to 45 minutes a day versus 5-10 hours a week is because now experts tell us that if we're able to do anything consistently for at least 21 days, it can become a what? We can all use a habit that's profitable and positive, right? So it's just getting on a board riding that wave along with it. Now that brings us to money. And let's face it, if you're out there, some of you may be right now, or maybe you want to, if you're out there flipping properties, residential, multi-units, commercial, if you're out there buying properties for rentals, right? We either need to have a bunch of money, especially in this market here, this area right now, or you need to have access to a lot of money through somebody else. That's just the way the market is right now. However, part of the reason I truly believe tax lien investing is growing in popularity, it's achievable and affordable for almost everybody. You can start investing in tax lien certificates with less than $100. You can go out and buy a tax lien certificate for $35 today. How many love the sound of that? Now, let me ask, is that $35 investment going to make you filthy rich?
No.
Okay, good. I'm glad you all didn't run out when I said that, all right? Because it's not get rich quick. It's not going to turn around that quickly. But what a $30 or a $50 or a $70 investment will do is it makes us feel more comfortable in getting started. We don't have to dive in with tens of thousands of dollars like traditional real estate in most cases. Today I can start off with $50. I can make some money and then scale up. It's a scalable investment. I can start off really small and build up to whatever you have the ability to invest with or really what you're comfortable with. It's part of the beauty of this type of investing. Now, it is true, the more money you can invest, the more money you can make because it's based on a rate of return. Okay? So keep that in mind also. And something that I've discovered in helping people over the last few years is that some of you are here today because you have to make more money and you're going to start off with small investments because that's where you are financially. That's how I started. Some of you that have quite a bit of capital to invest, whether it's thousands, tens of thousands, or even more, still tend to start off small so you learn it before you dive in and start investing massive amounts of money. Just to understand the case. So I'll keep it a level playing field no matter what your financial situation is to make it achievable for everybody in this room today, all right, to get you on the right track. Now, that brings us, of course, to the general knowledge, right? Knowledge will help us overcome all the other things that are out there. But I also think we're all smart enough to realize that no matter how fast I talk here today, in the 4 hours we're together, I can't teach you everything. It's just a few items. I'm just kidding, guys. We're not really going to be here for 4 hours. But I can now tell who was dragged here by somebody else. Like, what are you doing today? Only so many drinks when we leave. I'm kidding, everybody. All right, we're going to be here for less than 90 minutes. But I can't teach every detail in less than 90 minutes. I couldn't in 4 hours either, to be really upfront with you. But I can get you on the right path, all right? Now, knowing that also, I like to get this out of the way, too, because if you've ever been to anything formatted like this on stocks or real estate for some of those gurus of TV shows, right, that you go to, you see in the area, you probably walked in this thinking, I want to learn it, but these guys are going to try to sell something. So I like to get that out of the way. For those of you who want to continue your education with us, we do give that opportunity. Whether you do it or not, it's completely up to you. I just try to make it common sense. I'll just show it to you. We know it's not for everybody. We'll at least get you on the right path. And then when we're done, if it's something you want to do, we'd love to have you on board. We'll make it as simple as we possibly can. We'll be doing a workshop in the area. For those of you who'd like to continue on, I'll give you all the information up here on the screen a little bit later on. October 5th, 6th, and 7th, so we try to give you some time to make arrangements to get there. There is an investment if you choose to do so. It's not thousands and thousands of dollars because we don't have a guru who's on TV to pay to share of, right? So we don't need those things. The investment to attend our live training is less than $1,000. It's about $600. That's for you and a guest. It's for 2 people. Like I said, if you'd love to do it, we'd love to have you on board. If not, I'll at least teach you enough to get started here today. Just continue your education when you leave this room, whether it's with us or on your own. Fair enough? Right? We'll make it as simple as we possibly can. Now, with that said,
I just want to know, is the workshop specifically tax
liens
liens?
and deeds, yeah. So which we'll cover here today. Now, it does cover some basics to real estate for those of you who are not familiar with anything in real estate. You're just getting started with this because you want to have the opportunities to maximize your profits and everything we do, which we will talk about again here today, Mark, all right? So with that said, you ever heard that KISS theory of education? Keep it simple. Yeah, I'll say silly, right? I'm trying to be nice. So we're going to keep it as simple as I can. I'll keep it to simple numbers that are not market accurate. It's just ABCs, all right? I'm going to stick to simple terminology, the easiest formats in which this works, all right? So to get started, there are three things you see up here that have to exist for tax lien investing to work. The first thing is a parcel of land, okay, a property. For our example today, for simplicity, we're just going to say it's a home, single-family home. Make it as easy as we can. Second thing we need is the local government. Now, local governments are who control tax lien certificates in each area. In most places, and in this type of investing here, it's generally controlled by counties. Now, it's very important for you to know, because I'll use the terminology of county today, because that's what we're primarily dealing with. It's very important for you to understand as you start to research more into this and start to learn more, you will run into other areas in the South and the Northeast where it's controlled by a city, a township, a municipality, or even a parish. It works the same, it's just a different local government that's controlling, okay? So just know what to look for when you get in that scenario. Now, the final thing we need is always the same, and that's us, and we're investors, okay? Now, I think we all know this. At certain points throughout the course of each year, that homeowner will owe property taxes to the county. My question for everybody in the room is, does that money always get paid on time? Yes or no?
No.
If it did, yeah, this wouldn't exist. Yeah, exactly. It's the whole reason it's there is because of delinquent property taxes. Now, I think most of you know this, but if you don't, property taxation is the #1 source of revenue for most counties across the United States, almost all of them. It pays in most counties, it pays for schools, roads, fire department, police department, parks and rec, sanitation. It pays for their buildings, it pays for their employees, it pays for their projects. If that county doesn't have enough revenue coming in to cover those things, they have to cut back. They have to cut back, sometimes downsize schools, fire teachers, fire department, police department. They have to cut back on all these different things. So if it gets bad enough in a certain area, they can actually file for bankruptcy. Stockton, Vallejo, San Bernardino, even Orange County has filed for bankruptcy twice in the past 15 years. Now, it is true, many of you probably know this, California has more bankruptcy in counties than any other state in the U.S., most states combined. And they have for decades. There's reasons for it, which we'll get to if you don't know. But it's not unique to here. You have several places in Michigan, as most of us know, places in Idaho, Pennsylvania, on and on and on. We've seen a lot of over the last decade. But we've seen a lot of changes also, especially in the last 10 years because of it. Because these counties need the revenue coming in, so they have to find a way to make up that revenue. So that's why counties have adopted some version of what we're covering here today, tax and certificate investing. What it essentially does is it allows us as investors to invest in the county, so the county has revenue to pay their bills, and in return, we get growth on our money. Okay? That's the barest essentials to it, the simplicity of it. Now, to give you a visualization of how it works, remember I mentioned we're going to use simple numbers. So the example I'm going to use is not market accurate. It's just so you understand the concept, all right? So let's say that this property right here, we'll use it a couple of times today. Let's say this property is worth $100,000. Simple, easy number, okay? Now, let's say that the property owner owes $8,000 in property taxes, but they don't pay for whatever reason. Well, if they don't pay, we just established that county needs that revenue, right? So the county will step in and they'll place a tax lien against the property for the delinquent amount. So there's now a $1,000 tax lien against a $100,000 property. Everybody with me so far? Mm-hmm. To this point, it's the same everywhere. Every county functions the same up until here. Here's where the variations start to come in based on local laws. Okay, and I'm going to share with you the easiest explanation, the easiest format in which this works. So what happens now is in some areas, not here, but in some areas, they will then take that tax lien certificate and put it up for sale, where investors like you and I can step in and purchase it. And we'd actually buy it in some areas for what's called face value. Now in this case, that face value is $1,000. So we can actually step up in this county, pay the county $1,000, the county then issues us that $1,000 tax lien. So we would now own a $1,000 tax lien against a $100,000 property. The next thing we need to factor into this is the time frame. Now the time frame is usually referred to as the redemption period. Redemption period is really simple. It's the time frame that the county gives the homeowner to step up and do what? Yeah, to pay that money back, to redeem. Yeah, yeah. It's, yeah, covering that right now. So it depends on the area, okay? Redemption periods vary place to place based on local laws. The shortest redemption period on paper right now is actually 90 days, 3 months. The longest, as you mentioned, is over 5 years. California.
Yeah.
Not collecting any revenue for 5 years. That's what drives so many counties into bankruptcy. It kind of explains that, all right? So now, the national average, however, is 2 to 3 years. For our example today, for simplicity, we're going to say it's just 1 year, okay? Just to keep it as simple as we can. So $1,000 tax lien, $100,000 property, 1 year redemption period. Now that money will usually get paid back before the redemption period expires. When I say usually, statistics right now show it's over 95% of the time that money will be paid back before the redemption period expires. Now this becomes important because this next step is where we primarily make our money. When this homeowner, when they step up to pay that money back, do they just pay back the $1,000 and they're done?
No.
They have to pay back interest, penalties, and fees on top of the original money they owed. So we'll come back to the interest because that's where we make our money, okay? So when this money is paid back, it's not paid back to us, the investors, first. Now I know we all want our money back as quickly as possible, but this is also part of the reason that we as savvy and smart investors love tax lien investing. It makes it passive for us, which means at no point as a tax lien certificate investor will you ever have to go knock on doors or call people to collect money. You never have to do that. How many of you like that you never have to do that? Okay? The county is required to chase the money for us. So what we love about it is we invest and we wait. Okay? So the county, they chase the money. When they receive the money, of course, they're the county, they did the work, they're going to pay themselves first. So the county, obviously, is going to keep the fees every time. Most counties today, and for simplicity, we're just going to say the county keeps the penalties also, just to make it easy to stay on time. The final thing to this is what we get is we get our money back, in this case the taxes, what we originally invested, and we get the large interest. Yeah, that's our profit. That money is gathered. It's sent to us usually in the form of a check. Sometimes it's a transfer of funds, but it's usually a check. And when you receive that check in the mail, essentially that's payday. You've got all of your money back, plus the large interest, which is your profit. You can now move on to the next investment. That's the basic concept of tax lien certificate investing. So essentially what's happening here is you're loaning the county money so they can pay their bills. In return, you'll get your money back plus interest on the loan that you gave them. It's essentially just earning large interest on your money. How many would agree that's a fairly simple concept? Raise your hands. How many would love it if that's all you need to know to make millions of dollars? Raise your hands. Now, like Steve and like many of you, there's many things that we have to interject into this now. Okay, because I'd love to say, let's wrap it up and go make millions, but there's a lot more that goes into it. This is just, remember, building foundation here, just building layers. So that's the first part of it. As long as you understand that first initial concept, you understand why tax lien certificate investing exists and what the purpose behind it is and what the benefit is for you, the investor, and for the county. All right? Now we have to start to factor in the things like, what if that person never pays back? What are the subtle law differences? When can we buy them? How much they cost? How do we buy them? Factor in a lot of those little things that we get into that we need to be aware of in each area. But where we're going to start in this, where we're going to start off in showing is, of course, the interest. And because the reason I do that is because the only reason we really want to invest in tax lien certificates is to make more what?
Money.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to make money. Hopefully you get more excited than what you just gave me right there, but we'll build up to it, right? And the reason I want to share this with you is there's a reason that Forbes and Fortune, the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, those articles I showed you in the very beginning, the reason there's a reason that they say it's so lucrative. The comparison they're making is to traditional investing in the United States, especially long-term wealth creation. One big comparison they make in almost all these articles has to do with retirement investing in the U.S., or the lack thereof. Right? The scary face of retirement, I almost don't have enough saved for retirement, all those things. And part of the reason for that are the ways that most of us have learned to invest for retirement. Where do most Americans, right now, 2018, where do most Americans put their money to save for retirement? Yeah, you said bank. Perfect, absolutely. Now, I heard other things too, 401ks, IRAs, CDs, right? But believe it or not, statistically speaking, bank is true. In the United States today, 2018, they say the number one place that Americans put their money to save for retirement is still a savings account.
Whoa.
What is your
That's
Yeah, what is your annual rate of return on your money in a savings account right now?
Mine is 20.
Less than 1%.
Yeah, less than 1%. Based on inflation, you actually are in the negative, right? They actually say it's less than 1% annually on your growth on your money, about 0.5% per year. Now CDs, 3 and 5 year, at every major bank in the United States right now are under 2%.
1.4,
Yep.
1.3.
And to add into this, the other traditional things that most of us know of, things like 401ks, IRAs, and mutual funds are based in volatility. Most of them are based in the stock market. Put it this way, can you lose money in a 401k?
Yes.
Yeah. Millions of Americans have, right? Many are still finally climbing out of some of those big holes. And I'm not saying it in a negative way, it's just the way that most of us have always been taught to invest. You're dealing with the ups and downs in this. They also go on to say, and many of you know this based on the responses you've given me right there, they said the average annual rate of return for the average American in traditional investments like 401ks and IRAs over the last decade has been under 5% annually. Under 5. Is it closer to 3%?
It's
5%?
3.
Yep, exactly. Closer to 3. Now, here's what's beautiful about tax and certificate investing and why it's great to learn this. There's no great way to put it. I just put it this way. Even if you're bad at it, okay, as long as you follow the rules, just follow the rules, and you can make at least 5% annually. Yeah? That's just knowing the basics and following the rules. Putting in some time, like you're doing here today, to learn some of these things and applying that information, you can make anywhere from 5 up to 18% annually on your money. And if you really move forward, you really continue to learn this, you can make, and what I'd love to share with you are ways to make anywhere from 18 up to 50% growth on your money annually. How many much rather do that anyway?
Yeah.
So based on a lot of the responses I'm getting
Yes.
today, most of you, it feels like understand what those numbers mean. Sometimes I'm in groups where they don't. And just to make sure we're on a level playing field, not everybody realizes that 2% can be a massive difference over the course of several years. And to be perfectly frank with you, I didn't. Up until I was 30 years old, I didn't invest. I didn't care about investing. I didn't understand investing. I didn't understand finance. I didn't go to college for any of these things. So eventually, like you guys are here today, learn from others that were doing it and start to duplicate a lot of that process, right? Because up until I was 30 years old, I worked a regular manual labor job. I worked construction. Nothing against it. It's what I knew. It's what I grew up in. I traded hours for dollars, right? Thought I would do it for the rest of my life until I got hurt when I was about 30 years old. Couldn't continue to physically work that way anymore. Kind of a blessing in disguise when everything's said and done. But it completely changed my life, right? A couple of down years, and then things started to take off based off, learning and applying the knowledge. So that's why I share this with you, because if somebody would have told me, and I wasn't investing at 29, but if somebody would have told me at 29, I can get you 2% better on your investments, I would have laughed in their face and said, who cares, it's 2%. Yeah, but when we're talking about mortgages and things like that, it's a massive difference, right? Now, given I had a very quick path to success because I turned 36 months ago, so that's me reaching, everybody. That's me reaching to hold on to the youth. I'm in mid-40s, so yay, mid-40s. So it was almost 15 years ago, right? So obviously a couple of down years, but the last 12 years have been phenomenal. Various different reasons. So that's why I want to use this example. I feel like most of you understand this, but just to make sure we're all on the same page of what these numbers mean and why they say it's so lucrative. So let's say as an example, we have $5,000 to invest in something traditional. Let's say we're getting better than the national average, getting double. We're getting 6% compounding interest on our money each year for 30 years. Just growth on growth, right? We sit and let that money grow. What we have in our investment account 30 years later is just a little over $28,000. Nobody ever celebrates when I show this. And then it hits that most investments are paying less than this right now.
Yes.
Right? So tax lien investing, here's why I love, and this is why I get excited sharing it with you, is you have places on the lower end of what I'm going to show you today. You have places like Arizona that pay 16% each year by law, in written contract with the county. And the safety net, as many of you know, the backup plan on this is properties. It's actual real estate assets. Yeah, it's a safety net they talk about in this. So that 10% bump from here to here doesn't seem like much, but from here to here, it boosts it up another $400,000. You're not working any harder, you're working what?
Smarter.
We're allowing our money to work for us, as we should. Now that 2% I joked about that I thought didn't make a difference, you've got places like Florida and New Jersey that pay 18% annually by law once again. That 2% bump takes us up to just over $700,000. So we're on the right track. Now the largest rate of return in this type of investing in the nation is, of course, the state where everything's bigger anyway. Where's that? Texas. 25% growth on your money. Now, what makes it the largest rate of return is that it's not an annual rate of return like the other areas. In the state of Texas, you can make 25% growth on your money in just 6 months. Some of you do that, 6 months. So now we adjust this. We're making 25% compounding interest on our money every 6 months for 30 years. After 30 years, you'd be sitting on just over $5.8 million. And still no happiness in this room. You guys are always greedy on Sundays. I don't know. You guys give me this look like, I don't get out of bed for less than 10 mil, Jay. I always go like that. Give me a break though, I'm trying, right? So I also bring this up because I know we're absorbing the information, and I know there's a huge flaw in this plan. That plan is 30 years. We can't go back 30 years. I hope we all have it, but none of us want to wait another 30 years. We all want to make money when? Yesterday, yeah. So, and this is not to disappoint anybody, I think most of you understand this. Tax and certificate investing is not get rich quick. It's based on a rate of return and a length of time. Okay, it's more of it's almost a slow burn, so to speak. It's much better and faster than those traditional things, and there are some accelerators to it, but it does take some time. So in the very beginning, I always make sure to point this out. The sooner you get started, the sooner you can get paid. Also, in the beginning, you're not going to see results for at least a few months. That's just the way it works, okay? So I know that's disappointing, but believe me, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, all right? So that's why I say in the very beginning, is it important to have goals, yes or no?
Yes.
So focus on some of those goals in the beginning, the reasons why you're doing this, because it's something that's achievable. Now, remember, it's not based on 30 years, it's based on redemption periods. So as you look up here, Arizona is a 3-year redemption period, which means you're making 16% each year over those 3 years, 16, 16, 16. Okay? New Jersey is 2 years, 18%, 18%, and of course Texas is just 6 months, 25%. And here's a great comparison. I don't recall if I read this in Forbes or Fortune magazine, it was one of the two, and they put it this way, they said, think about it this way. You can take a bunch of money, you can invest in a 5-year CD in a bank right now. Or you take that same amount of money, learn to do this, invest in one of these in the state of Texas, you'll make more than 10 times more money in 6 months than you will in 5 years in a CD. How many love the sound of that? 10 times more money in 1/10 of the time.
Yeah.
That's the comparison you have this. Now, there's some other things that are phenomenal about it too. Now remember, Texas is not the only place with a redemption period that's a year or less. You have several places, Georgia, South Carolina, Hawaii, all under a year. They don't pay as well as Texas, but there's still opportunities, okay? Also, here's something that when I first started doing this was not possible that I knew of. But over the last few years, how would you like to find an area, say like in New Jersey, where you could buy the tax and certificate towards the end of the redemption period? Like the aging process has already begun. So let's say there's 7 months left. When the money pays back to you in 7 months, you get paid back as if you were invested the full 2 years.
What?
How would you like to be able to do that also? Now, because of time, you need to be able to research some of these things on your own. So if you're interested in that, what I want you to be able to go home and research is what's called a tax lien secondary marketplace. It's called a secondary marketplace. What a secondary marketplace allows us to do is invest towards the end, but get the full benefits, right? Various reasons, different places, different things that will happen for us.
Is that the same thing as purchasing like tax lien?
No, that's different. We're going to get to that too, okay? So that's a tax lien secondary marketplace. So there's some accelerators in this. We get returns much faster than traditionally waiting. Now, they also go on to say, part of the beautiful side of this is that it's high rate of return with a very low risk. And some of you have read some of these reports, I'm sure, but if you haven't, you go home and read them. Part of those articles that I showed at the very beginning, many financial experts like to call tax lien certificate investing a recession-proof investment. Because in over 100 years, there's never been a downturn market. 100 years, never been a downturn market. It's one of the most proven wealth creation systems in the world for the last 100 plus years. This is also the reason that big entities have been doing it for so long. When I say that, I mean hedge funds, insurance companies, banks have been investing in tax and certificates for decades. Everybody's heard of or uses Wells Fargo. Everybody knows Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo admitted in print less than 2 years ago they've been successfully investing in tax and certificates for over a century, for about 110 years. if it's good enough for banks, it's got to be good enough for us. Right? It's good enough for billion-dollar investors. It's good enough for worldwide investors, trillion-dollar industries like insurance companies. Right? Some are newer to it. Some have been doing it for a long, long time. And what's almost scary to point out in this is when banks all across the United States are making massive amounts of money investing in tax-lien certificates, whose money are they using to do it? Ours. Let that sink in a little bit, everybody, all right? Now, I think most of us realize how banks work. You put money in the bank, they loan it out. That's how banks operate. Most don't realize they're doing this with our money. On a low end, what that says to you is your bank can take your money, invest in tax-lien certificates on a low end, make 16% interest on your money in the course of a year, and your bank is nice enough to pay you back less than 1%. Just think about that for a minute. There's a reason that banks like Wells Fargo and Chase still give out these. Say it in jest, but it makes it worse. They're not just suckers, they're dum-dums, right? If you bank at Chase or Wells Fargo, specifically SunTrust also, you can't even avoid it going through the drive-thru because they throw them in the drawer, right? And this is not 5, 10 years, this is current, right? And I say it somewhat jokingly. I don't know if we're conspiracy theorists, we could dive really into this, right? However, I bring it up somewhat jokingly, but at the same time, I just put it this way. If it's good enough for them, it's got to be good enough for us. How many agree with that, right? Yeah. So how do we do it with competing, right? So we'll cover those before we get into this. Now, I want to share with you how obviously you start to see the rate of return. This is why more and more people are flocking to this. The control we have, where I can invest for 2 years, 3 years, 1 year. I have control over those things. Where if I take that money and put it in a 401k, if I want to take money out in 2 years, I'm going to get penalized, overtaxed. Yeah, so there's variables to this that make it so great. That's why it's been around for so long, and it's part of the reason the average person hasn't known about it. Is in the past, when I first started, I thought it was only for huge entities and for very wealthy investors. It's really for everyone. Now, there's a secondary way, and this may be the reason you're here, that you can make money in tax-lien investing that I want to share with you. I want to clear up some things that you've probably heard in this also, if you've heard these before. But remember, the majority of the time, when we're investing in tax-lien certificates, the way that we make our money, the majority of the time, is we get our money back plus interest. Yeah. So that brings us to the next step, which is, occasionally, very rarely, okay, what happens if that redemption period expires, but nobody ever paid? What then? Okay, perfect. I heard somebody say the legal way to do this. Somebody said we get the property. Okay. So the concept of we get the property is correct. But some of you mentioned there's a legal process to go through to get it. So let's clarify this a little bit, okay? Do you remember I mentioned in the beginning there's thousands of variations to this? If your goal is to get properties through tax-lien certificate investing, you need to make sure that the area you're investing in allows you to get the property. Because in some areas, it's specifically just for your money and interest, okay? So you've got to make sure you're investing in the right areas. Now, most areas that allow you to buy tax-lien certificates give you some chance to the property. So what happens in this? If the redemption period expires, nobody pays, you have a chance to get the property. What you receive, just so you know, you're familiar with the terminology, you receive what's called the first right of refusal to the property. Yeah? It's called the first right of refusal. What that means is that you're in the first position, okay, for that property. See, tax-lien certificates are viewed as government-based liens. Your government-based lien will supersede all other liens and encumbrances against the property that are not government-based. So it takes that first position. So when you receive that first right of refusal, you know you're in the first position. So now, you can step in and take that property through what many of you said, through foreclosure. That's the legal process. We can't skip that. When that process is done, you then own that property, deed title free and clear, and you would have purchased it for just pennies on the dollar. How would we like to get some properties for pennies on the dollar also, right? That's what we'd love to share with you how to do both. Now, remember this. This is the way I hope that you approach tax-lien investing. Tax-lien certificate investing, you're usually going to get your money back plus interest. Properties essentially become a bonus to them. Now, I've had people say to me, well, I've heard more investors like us about properties the last 10 years than ever before. Statistically speaking, that is true. I think that everybody that's ever looked into real estate understands that real estate goes in cycles, peaks and valleys. So the peak of getting properties, time frame is. What happened to the housing market 10 years ago? Yeah. We had that huge boom and then boom, crashed, right? Bottom fell out. So here's what happened during that time frame. You had millions of Americans that lost their homes. Hopefully nobody in this room, hopefully we won't rebound from it down, but millions of Americans lost their homes, bankruptcies, foreclosures, so on and so forth. Now, when somebody stops paying their mortgage, odds are they're not paying their right. So when this happened, you had this mass amount of properties with liens against them, where homeowners and investors ran away from the properties, right? And so it allowed us as tax lien certificate investors for those next few years to step in and get those properties much easier and faster. We were getting them virtually uncontested at that time. So the peak to get properties through tax lien certificate investing was 7, 8, 9 years ago. Fair enough, right? So we flash forward to today. That's where those statistics come from. The chances are still there to get properties. Actually, legally speaking, the laws have changed to our advantage as investors to get these properties, but there's just not the frequency. The economy's different, right? We're not in that hole that we were in back then. Now, you can increase the chances of getting properties, because it does happen. You can increase the chances based on where you invest, how you invest, the times in which you invest. All those things help increase the chances of you getting properties, all right? So that's the way you want to look into this is, I know I'm usually getting my money back, but I do have a chance for the property. Now, there's some other things I want to expand on this. One major thing is, you never have to take the property. You're never stuck with the property. That's why they call it the first right of refusal. You can refuse the right to the property. And I know I'm explaining this to you knowing that most of us, if we have a chance to get a property, we want to take it because we can make bigger chunks of money. But I do occasionally run into people that say, hey, I'm just doing this for the money. I don't want to deal with properties, I want my rate of return. So when you refuse the right to the property then is usually defaulted back to the county. And guess what the county does with it? Exactly, they auction it off. Now when they auction it off, they're legally required to give us our money back plus our interest. So we still make money, that way we just don't have to deal with the real estate bill. That's up to you. Now that brings up probably the most commonly asked question in this, which is this. And hear me out on it, okay? What happens if we get to this point, we get the right to step in and take this property, and as we're stepping in to foreclose and take it, we suddenly discover that property is worth $100,000, has an $80,000 mortgage owed to the bank. If that happens, and you do everything legally and correctly, you then own that property. And as the new homeowner of that property, what happens to that $80,000 mortgage for you? It's clear. Yeah. You do not assume the debt. It is not your debt by law. It is now your property. You own it free and clear, and you will never owe a single penny on that $80,000 mortgage. How many love the sound of that? Sounds awesome. It's great, right? Now, this is not to see exactly. This is not to steal your dreams, everybody. All right. However, here's what you need to remember. Right now, in today's market, 2018, that bank that's holding that $80,000 mortgage, do they want to lose that property over $1,000 debt? No. They want that property. So by law, they have the legal ability, before the redemption period expires, to step up and exactly to pay it off. Okay? When they pay it off, that I know it's depressing. We don't get the property. Stops that so that the bank can then take that property. Now, this was happening where we get properties this way 7, 8, 9 years ago, because as you remember, banks were struggling too. Banks were getting shut down. So they're letting some of these properties go. Today, that doesn't happen very often. It's extremely rare that that'll happen. The bank wants that property. So the bank will step up. They'll pay off the tax lien certificate. Now, remember this, though. We still get our money back plus our interest. Because the bank has to pay back just like the homeowner. They pay taxes, interest, penalties, and fees. Now, I know it's depressing we don't get the property, but how many of you love the fact that you finally found a way to charge a bank interest? Hey, so that's part of the beauty behind it also. And this is the reason that I started off in the very beginning with all these different articles, these different financial reports, all stating the same thing, that essentially tax lien certificate investing is simply the safest and most lucrative investment strategy you'll find in America today, because when done properly, we get our money back plus large interest, or we get the opportunity to walk away with properties free and clear for just pennies on the dollar. How would we really love to have both, right? It's knowing that we have the chance to get that. Now, knowing this, I know it sounds pretty secure. And in the past, you even hear people say, hey, it's a guaranteed investment. I don't say that because, hey, things can happen, right? Now, it's more secure than traditional investing. The high rate of return is phenomenal compared to traditional investing. But put it this way. Does that mean that you can go out and buy any tax lien certificate and make money every single time? Yes or no? No. Okay. Let me give you an example. Let's say you buy a tax lien certificate against a residential property. Let's say you just blindly buy it. You get the first right of refusal. You step into foreclose and take that property, and you suddenly discover that property is a crack house or a meth lab. Do you want it? No. Yes, because then you've got a business along with your property. Time out, everybody. That was a joke, but I'm glad that you understood it was a joke, all right? Sometimes people look at me like, did you just say sell crack? Once again, I'm not here to judge. To each their own, all right? However, the reason I bring it up and make sure you're paying attention is remember this. The county will place liens against all parcels of land that have delinquent taxes owed.
Right.
It's to make money for the county, not for us. We make money as a byproduct. So that means the county will place liens against swampland, ditches, desert, medians on freeways, parking strips, alleys, easements. And there's way more of that stuff available than there's against the stuff that we actually want. So before you ever buy a tax lien certificate, you need to do your homework. Yes, your homework, your due diligence. Now that doesn't mean I have to go to the property and research it and inspect it, okay? Because odds are I'm not going to end up with a property. More than 95% of the time, I'm going to end up with my money back plus my interest. But I want to make sure that I'm investing in something that has value. In today's real estate market, those of you real estate, I tell many of you are, a property is only truly worth what somebody else will pay for. You can end up with a ditch in the middle of the desert, and it might be worth something to somebody, but the reality is today, there's tons of land in the United States that's been for sale for decades that nobody's ever bought, because there's no true value that they can do anything with it. So you want to make sure in your due diligence that you can actually go out there and see that, hey, yes, somebody sees some value in this. I can either make money with the property itself, or if somebody actually owns this property, they're going to pay back, so I get my money back plus my interest. It's just a list of due diligence, just certain things to go through. Taxes has values of the property, those types of things, okay? So covering some of the different stuff that we have there. Now, I know the ultimate goal is, yeah, we want to get these paychecks, but at the same time, we want to acquire properties. Now, when you do acquire a property right now, especially a residential property, do you think that property is going to be in perfect condition?
No.
Yeah, most of the properties we're getting today, especially residential properties, we're usually getting for a reason. Okay? We're usually getting them, they're sitting for days, weeks, months, or even longer. Okay? Now, many investors look at properties like this and want to run away. Other investors look at properties like this and we see what?
Money.
We see potential, money, right? Because we can step in, we can rehab the property. We have the means and the education to do so. Turn it from this to this. Once it's rehabbed, what can we do with it?
Sell it.
Yeah. Sell it, rent it. Yeah, turn it into an Airbnb. That is huge today, everybody. If you guys don't know the value of Airbnb right now, you guys realize it's worth more than Marriott and SPG combined? Do you realize it's worth more than Hilton? And how many properties does Airbnb actually own? 0, right? It's profitable to us as investors. So there's tons of different ways to make money with this stuff. It's just having the general knowledge of real estate. That's why it's important, as I was bringing up earlier, Mark. Some of you have that general education, but through our 3 days of education, we want to make sure that when you do have an opportunity, you know how to maximize the profits on every deal that you do. What's best for you may not be what's best for the person next to you. So of course we can defer back to the county, get our money back plus our interest. And if we don't want to rehab the property at all, you can also do what's called a wholesale. How many are familiar with wholesale? Okay. Wholesaling is acquiring the property, not rehabbing it, but selling it to another investor, making money in between. This is a property that I did a wholesale with about 2.5 years ago. Now remember, location factors into the prices. I think everybody knows that, right?
Yeah.
So this is a property, the tax lien on this property I bought was $526.72. Okay, $526.72. Now this property is not here. This property is in northern Ohio, north of Toledo, almost on the border of Michigan. Okay, so it's a rural area. Now I bought it with less than a year left on the redemption period. So in about 9 months, I got the right to take the property. So I step in to take the property, and remember where it is. This part factors in too. There are going to be some fees for title transfer, foreclosure, and things like that. Because of where it was only about $350. In your backyard, it's going to be just a little bit more. It's putting it nicely, all right? It's going to cost you more, but it can be way more profit also, right? So I ended up with this property for about $1,000 out of pocket. So I could have rehabbed it, but I don't live in Ohio. I actually live in DC, just outside of DC on the Maryland side. So this is halfway across the nation. I don't know any investors in that area at this time, a couple years ago. I don't know any crews that can repair this at GC in the area. So this is where the wholesale comes in. I call the real estate agent. And as I spoke to her, went back and forth for a while. In the end, I just said, hey, listen, I'm willing to entertain any serious offers you can give me quickly. She said, great. She called me back the next day, a couple more questions. Within 48 hours, less than 48 hours, she had the first offer. She called me and she said, hey, I've got an offer. And she said, I'm warning you, it's not phenomenal, but the investor that wants the property is willing to take it in as-is condition, and they're offering cash. Is that good to know, yes or no?
Yes.
So I said, well, how much are they offering? And she said, it's only about 25 grand. Guess what I said?
Thank you.
Send me my money. Exactly. I'll take it. And the reason is she expected me to negotiate, right? But the reality is that I could have. I probably could have made a little bit more on it. But at that point, does she know that I only spent about $1,000 on the property?
No.
At that point, she had no clue, right? So for me, that's still a win. Even walking away, even with fees and commissions and everything, we're still walking with close to 20 grand on a $1,000 investment. How many would love to do stuff like that? Now, does it happen every day? No, okay, it's few and far between, but it's knowing that you have the opportunity to do it. Now, if you do acquire a property in your own backyard, you realize that you may be able to make even more money in a rehab. This is the most recent property I acquired in Maryland. My girlfriend and I bought this property through not a tax lien. We bought this property through a tax deed, okay? Now, tax deeds are more commonly done here, okay, than liens are. There's differences between the two. The major difference that most of you are going to see immediately is cost. Liens are affordable for everyone, okay? Deeds may not be, especially the area you're investing in. Deeds, you need to have thousands, tens of thousands, some areas here in California, hundreds of thousands of dollars. The trade-off is, with liens, we're usually getting our money back plus interest. With deeds, you're usually getting the property. Okay? That's why you're investing more. Now, you're still going to get the property for under market value. Okay? So you're still going to be able to make profit on it, but this is why we start off with lien investing, because it's achievable for everybody to at least get started. And I'm truly under the belief, in helping people with this the last few years, it's better to do something than to do nothing. And that cost sometimes is going to hold people back. With liens, we know we can get you started. $50, you're in, right? So now, we had acquired this property for just, with legal fees, everything, just under 70 grand. Okay, still below market value. We decided to rehab the property. When we got the property, every single room in the house was painted the same color. The problem was the color was this. Even the bathrooms were painted the same color. And I don't know if you've all seen much worse than this. So we rehabbed the property. Obviously, this is a more modern touch to it. We put about $30,000 into the rehab of the property. Okay? When it was rehabbed, we sold it. It sold about 2.5 months ago. Closed. We were in about 100 grand. Remember, areas are different. It sold for what it should have, about 158. So we're in 100, out 158. Our net was just under 50 grand. How many are okay with that also, right? Different areas, you can make more, you can make less. It depends on the areas that you're in. Now, with that said, obviously, those are a couple of different deals. Just taking a few of those helps you achieve those financial goals much easier, and at the same time, getting paychecks, right? Getting your money plus your interest back. Now, this particular deal that we did, this was her money? I don't know how to say it anymore. My money, her money, our money, her money, right? Yeah. So it was her money that we used to do this and profit. So with that said, fair enough, we had the ability to do that. If you would have came to me 10 years ago when I started, I wouldn't have had the money for the rehab on this. I wasn't liquid in that fashion. Today I am, but I still leverage things out. What I mean by that is you may run into a similar position. This is Christian and Ruth. They came to us about 4 years ago. They just wanted to make money. They got started immediately after they left our 3-day workshop, started investing. Within about 6 months, they ended up with a property. So just in review, they could defer the property to the county, they make 16% interest in that area. They could take the property and wholesale it, like I did the one in Ohio, and they make maybe 8 to 10 grand. But they knew if they rehabbed it, they'd make a heck of a lot more if they did it properly. Their challenge with this was they needed $40,000 for the rehab. They owned the property, but they didn't have 40 grand laying around for the rehab. Okay? So this is where being part of a network can help you out tremendously. Because they were part of our network, they told us, they said, listen, we don't have the 40 grand, we can't put it on credit cards, we can't get it conventionally. And they said it's okay to mention this. At the time, they didn't have very good credit. So they felt like they were stuck, and hey, 8 to 10 grand is still respectable, but it's not what they could make with it. So because they were students, because they owned the property outright, our network funded that rehab 100%. Gave them the full 40 grand. We didn't base it on their credit. We didn't base it on a job verification. We didn't do either. Because they were students, they owned the property. So this is a type of lending many of you have probably heard of. It's called asset-based lending. Yeah, it's against the fact that they own the property already. We're just funding the rehab on it. Okay? So when the property sold, there was about $90,000 profit on that deal. Christian and Ruth walked away with just over $72,000 profit. The network walked away with just under 18. I would agree that was a great deal for both of us, right? And I bring it up because if it wasn't for the 40 grand for the rehab, they would have walked away with 8 to 10, which is still good, but it's not 72 grand, right? And that's more money than each one of them made individually at their own jobs in the course of a year. That's the reason they wanted to do it. That's why we say, if you'd like to have that same opportunity like them, like many of our other students that we've been working with for the past decade, those of you who attend our live training on the 5th, 6th, and 7th, those are the dates, as I mentioned earlier. We actually give you pre-approval for funds for rehabs. Now, you don't have to use our capital, and it's negotiable, depending on your experience, our rates. Our rates are much better than traditional hard money, but they're not as good as a bank. So if you can get those funds from a bank, high limit, 0% interest credit card that are available today, we're going to suggest you go that route because you'll make more money. Our funding for rehabs is there if you need it as a safety net. Okay, so you have options. If you don't feel like there are any, we can help you out with that. Now, if you need money for traditional flips, that's not what we're covering this. We're covering things to deal with specifically liens and deeds. But if you need that, we can get you on the right path. Okay, we work with many different funding networks there for you. Now, those dates, the 5th, 6th, and 7th, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The hours are from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. Sunday, we're generally done by 2:30. So it's 2.5 days of full immersion in tax lien and deed investing to cover all the things you should be doing. It's predominantly about due diligence, making sure we don't make mistakes, and then, of course, the ways to make it as easy as possible, as profitable as possible. Now, before you need any of these things, we've got to know how to buy them first. And as excited as you may be to get properties and to get money back plus interest, that excitement's here. What's going to take you down here really quick is the process of buying them. Okay? So this is and believe me, I'll make it easier for you, but I've got to take you through the traditional way. This is not the way I did it for years, the way that most people still do it today. So the first thing you need to discover or determine is where you're going to invest. And I know some of you are dying to go home and Google tax lien certificates Texas. And you should be thinking that way, by the way, all right? However, as some of you I can tell already know, if you Google that, you will find absolutely nothing. And the reason is because they're not referred. Remember I said terminology is different place to place too? The terminology you look for in Texas are what are referred to as redemption deeds. They're called redemption deeds. They're not tax deeds. You find tax deeds in Texas, they're completely different. It's very similar to here. Okay? Redemption deeds are what we're looking for. That's what pays the 25% 6 months. The other thing I just want to make you aware of, if you haven't caught on to this yet, I love the concept, I love where our mind is going to, how much money we can make the fastest, the best way to do it in Texas. But you also need to remember Texas pays better than anywhere else. So guess who wants to buy in Texas?
Everybody.
Everybody. And I say this with all sincerity, is even with access to millions of dollars to invest, it's really, really hard to compete with billion-dollar challenges, billion. Because that's what you're actually going up against in most big counties in Texas. You're going against hedge fund managers that are managing money for billionaires around the world. That's how good this investment is. So remember this though, there are 254 counties in the state of Texas, the most in the nation. If you're willing to take some time to look into small and medium-sized counties, there's tons of opportunity. Now, you want to look into multiple areas because, as most of you know, especially here in California with tax deed sales, most places only have these sales once or twice a year. And they're only held over the course of a couple of days each year. So it's a very limited window in which you can actually invest. So you want to find multiple areas, multiple places, so you can do a kind of round-robin style and have opportunities year-round. So you start looking at places like Illinois. Illinois has counties that pay 18% every 6 months. That takes us up to 36%. Not as good as the 50 in Texas, but still good. Okay? It blows traditional investing out of the water. You have places like some areas in Maryland, some areas in Iowa pay 24% annually. Okay? I mentioned Florida is 18% annually. So there's a number of different areas. Okay? You can research certain areas here, done the right way, can be 18% also. Okay? So we look into some of these areas, so we kind of have a round-robin style to invest. Now, the next step is, once we determine the areas we want to invest in, we need to get lists of inventory so we can do our homework. Now, years ago, you get to list for free. Guess what more and more counties do today? Charge for the list. Now, they can be as little as $5 or $10. They can be as much as $500. It just depends on the county. So now let's say we buy a list, $20, off the races, ready to research, to buy some liens and make some money. You're excited to do so until you open up that list and you may see something that looks like this. Yeah, right? So you see this, or like this. That's actually Los Angeles County right there. And if you notice, there's not a single physical address on either of those lists. Yep, exactly. So we'll get to that in just a few moments. Now, they're different ones from different places. I'm going to just kind of quickly go through 10 of them right here. And you can see they're recorded in different ways. And the reason I want to point out, some of you caught it right away, the address thing I mentioned, is no county has to give you this information the same way. I can show you hundreds of different versions of these lists because it's not federally ran, it's locally ran by local governments. And when you buy the list, all they're legally required to give you is what they call the legal description of the property, which in most areas in the United States is not recorded by physical address.
No.
It's recorded by parcel ID numbers, lot and block numbers, in some areas, map coordinates. Millennials are doomed. Who even knows how to read a map anymore, right? There's no reason to, and I'm not knocking, I'm saying there's no reason to. So, yeah, so this is what we go through. Now, the other challenge you run into, and I can tell some of you have been through this or looked into it, is it's not like you get the list and the first 2 pages are residential, then commercial, then multi-units, then it's just in the order in which they're placed, so it's by date. And there's way more of the stuff that we don't want than the stuff that we do want. So this is where all that hard, remember I mentioned in the beginning, there are certain things that would take a couple of days to go through?
Yeah.
This is what I was referring to. This is what most people go through. So now, let's say you find a handful of liens that you want to purchase. You're excited because most of the hard work's done. You contact the county assessor and say, hey, these are the ones I want to buy. And the county assessor's office will say, we'd love to have your business. Yeah, exactly, but we can't sell them to you right now. What we need you to do is come down here on September 22nd so you can buy them at the live auction, the tax sale, right? This is the way it works here, the way it works in most places. Now, why do counties want us to buy at auction? It drives up the price, right? So we get this bidding phrase going, emotion takes over. Now, that's the way it's done here, it's the way it's done in most places. It's what's called a premium bid, where you're bidding up the price. So the county makes money that way. There's something that's growing in popularity that you may not have heard of, and I just want to make you aware of it if you get in this situation. It's something called the bid down process. Is anybody familiar with bid down? Raise your hand. Oh. So bid down, for those of you who are, back me up on this, but here's how it works. They do this in Florida, okay? Arizona also. So let's say we want to buy in a county and Florida 18% interest. Let's say it's that $1,000 tax lien we referred to earlier. We're there, we have the $1,000, we're ready to invest, we start bidding against each other, but we're not bidding on the price. The price stays face value. What we're bidding on is interest, yeah. The reason it's called bid down is because it will start off at the highest point. In this case, 18%, and you bid it down. Yeah, and 17. The winning bidder is the bidder that's willing to take the least amount of interest. Now, the national average of doing it this way is 6% or less. And I know that seems ridiculous because now we're talking about rates of return of 24, 36, and 50%. But in the real world, 6% is still better than most things are paying today. Yeah? So people are willing to bid it down to that. Now, the county loves it because the county is more than happy to give you your money back plus your 6%. But are they only collecting 6%?
No.
They're collecting the full 18. Guess who gets to keep the other 12?
Yeah.
They do. So the advantage goes to them. Now, this is just the way that it works in most areas. Either bid up or bid down. Now, before you go into the auction and start bidding, especially here in California, you can't just walk in and start bidding. You have to pre-register with each county you want to bid in, usually at least 2 weeks in advance. Okay? So you will acquire what's called a bidding number. Now, this bidding number has to be renewed each year. Some areas charge, some do not. The national average for California specifically is $35 to $55 per county. Okay? You occasionally will find counties that charge more, charge a little less. So now you have your bidding number. Now you want to go in and start bidding, and in most counties, especially once again here in California, you still can't bid until you pay a deposit to prove that you have the money to buy. Proof of funds, exactly. Now, this money, this deposit, this few $100s or several $1,000s that you paid in deposit, is still your money. But talk about a weeding out process. They do this on purpose to make sure that the investors that are at the auctions are serious. Yeah, absolutely. They want to weed out the people that aren't serious about being there. So let's say we pay 25, like Colorado County right here, 25, 35. The 35 goes to the processing of your paying of the registration for your number. The $2,500 is your money. That money goes towards your bidding. Now, if you don't bid on anything or if you don't win anything, you do get your $2,500 back. But even though they required you to prepay it up front, they do not hand it to you when you walk out the door. Yeah, they send it to you, in a check, usually 4 to 8 weeks, usually on the 8-week side, more than the 4-week side. And here's what's become very funny to me anyway, in California specifically, but more and more places are going this direction. You'll usually get a phone call from the county assessor before they cut you that check from the office, and they'll say, hey, you're an investor. Would you like us just to hold on your deposit until the next sale, which is a year away, which translates to maybe borrow your money for free for a year, right? And you can't knock counties for trying. They're doing this to make money for the county, right? But these are the normal hoops that we jump through. This is the traditional way that most of us have invested in liens or deeds across the nation and did for years. Now, this is something I highly suggest everybody at least checks out. And like I said, we go from excitement about it going, ooh, I don't know if this is for me. Deposits, this time, I have to be there live. This is something everybody should learn. Now that we've got that out of the way and understanding, how many would like to be able to buy tax-lien certificates, be able to do it without having to compete against anybody else, get the highest rate of return, and be able to do it all from home? How do I like to do it that way? Okay. Now, here's what I want you to write down. I'll give you a moment. I'll leave it up there for a second. It's a website. This is the full web address. It's taxliens.expert. Now, it's a members-only website. It simplifies tax lien investing. Okay? What it does, from the very beginning, there's education on there, there's videos and books. But instead of you having to contact counties, call them, go through all the hoops to figure out what they pay and how it works, on this, all you have to do as a member is go in and click on whichever area you want to invest in, whatever state, whatever county, and we'll break it down for you. So you can see, we have to update this throughout the course of the year. We actually do updates on this website every week because laws change throughout the course of the year in different areas, different times. So you can see Alabama, 12% interest, premium bid, which is the bid up process, 3-year redemption period, but you can only buy them in the month of May. So anytime they're sold there. Then we tell you places that we think are probably not good places to invest, places you should avoid. We just give you suggestions. We're not going to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. We'll just give you success rates and numbers. Then we tell you places that are great to invest, in our opinion, that have made us and our investors within our network a lot of money. One of my favorite places the last couple of years has been Georgia. Certain counties in Georgia pay 20% interest, 1-year redemption period. But what makes it really, really unique is in some of these counties, what they'll do is, let's say you bought one of these on a Monday, and the homeowner or the bank that's holding mortgage on that property steps up and pays that money back by Friday. Even though you've been invested for less than a week, you get your money back plus the full 20%. Wow. How would you like the sound of that, right? So we give you, remember I mentioned some accelerators in this? It doesn't happen every day, but it gives you the ability to make much more. Be safer and to accelerate to hit those goals. Now this is going to help you out in that sense. This saves a ton of time. Can help save a ton of money because a lot of people, time is money, I get that. But to blatantly save you money, and this next thing saves me thousands of dollars each year, you'll never have to purchase another list from anywhere in the United States, liens or deeds. They purchase all the lists. They only publish them if they're current. If they're old, they take it down. Okay? So you're not looking at old information. So now what I can do is go in, go to a state, go to a county, open up the list, and I get the list for free. Now instead of the list looking like this jumbled mess, through us it'll look like this. How many much rather choose from that? Same list. This and this are the same list, but now it's legible, right? So and on top of that, I now have the physical address. Now remember I mentioned earlier, I don't have to go to the property. And I did this on purpose. It's clear across the United States. It's in Jacksonville, Florida. Okay? Bless you. Couldn't get much further away from this. Okay? Now, I'm not going to go there to look at the property because odds are I'm not going to get the property. But I need to go through my due diligence, right? One of those things, you mentioned it, is I still want to see what the property is. Now that I have the physical address, I want to see it, so where can I go? Google. Do you remember I mentioned earlier, if you hate technology, but you can read, you can click or touch with a touchpad? That's all you need to do. Because what they've done is they've linked all the physical addresses to Google Maps for you. So now all you do is you click on the address, it opens up with Google Maps. You've got the overview, satellite, and street view. Street view is what I want, so I click up here, and I can see what that house is. I can do all that research, clicking a few buttons, and I never have to leave home. How do we agree? That's pretty cool. It makes it a lot easier. Raise your hands. Yes. Remember when I said things that used to take us several days now can be done in a few minutes? This is what's changed dramatically in the things we've done over the last several years. It's made it much more profitable, much more efficient, obviously, and safer investments than what we do. Now, from here, before I go from here, Has everybody finally learned that Google Maps is not always accurate?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, you're behind.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. There's a difference between 90 minutes of education and 3 days of education for due diligence, all right? So I want to make sure we understand that. Now, let's say we go through and do all the proper due diligence. Now, what I'm going to share with you next, you cannot do in every single county, but it's growing at an alarming rate. There's a reason for it. I'll explain it in a few moments. If this county happens to be open for business, instead of having to fly out there or bid by proxy, which is hiring somebody to bid there for me, an attorney, right? What I can now do is just click on the link on the TaxLien Expert website. It will take me to this county's inventory live online. Now I have their inventory online. I can see what's available. If I see the one that I want, I click on the box next to it. Next to that is a shopping cart that says buy now. I click on that. It lets me know if it's available through the county. It's available. I enter my form of payment. I click on I agree, and I can buy that tax-in certificate from home.
Like that?
How would you like to be able to do that also? Okay. Now let me explain this to you a little bit here before I show you how to do it, and I'll explain why it's happening. Okay? When you're buying tax-in certificates this way, I want to make absolutely clear here, you're not buying them from our network. When you click through to purchase, you're buying directly from the counties themselves. You're buying for face value. We get no piece of anything you do this way. It's purely education and tools. When you buy them, it's first come, first serve, and you're guaranteed your rate of return. If the county is supposed to pay 18%, they pay you 18%. If it's supposed to be 24, you get 24. How many of you love that also? Okay? So it gives you all of that right up front. Okay? Now, the counties process your payment has nothing to do with us. Some counties will accept credit cards, some counties accept electronic checks, and some counties accept both. It's completely up to that county the way that they want to process payment. Some, like I said, it's hit or miss depending on what it is, but you're buying directly from them. You get 100% of the benefit. We're just education and tools. Now, the reason this is happening, why more and more counties are jumping forward to do this, is quite simply because they need the what?
Money.
If you haven't seen most recent reports, it's pretty shocking to most. Some of you know it already, I'm sure. But they say right now we're averaging $20 to $25 billion a year in unpaid property taxes. $25 billion a year. The challenge states and counties are now having, finally, it's caught up to them over this past decade. Because of all these hoops they're making us jump through to buy liens and all these hurdles that are out there, they're only selling about $6 billion worth of inventory at live auction. So if you have a $25 billion debt and you're only making up $6 billion of it, and this goes on for several years, counties are just, yeah, that's exactly $100 billion. This is why counties are now doing this, because they just flat out need the revenue, so they don't have to go into bankruptcy. That's why it's also important to have guidance to say, okay, these are counties you want to avoid, these are counties that are really good right now. So we know we're getting our rate of return on our money back for the chance for properties, right? This is what they bring to the table. At last public count, there were almost 1 million tax lien certificates available in this fashion against billions of dollars worth of real estate that most people have no clue even exist. This just brings it to the table for you. How many of you love the sound of that? Yeah, that's why we don't keep our groups pretty intimate for a reason. Like I said, this isn't for everybody. This is something that everybody can make money with, but very few people understand the process. We just show you not only the knowledge, but also make sure you have the tool to do it. Now, for those of you who would like to get access to that website and the software, it's web-based, so you can do it obviously anywhere you can get access to internet worldwide. I've even bought tax lien certificates on flights, because now there's now Wi-Fi, right, which is pretty cool. The access to this you can purchase at any time. It's a one-time, lifetime investment. Okay? The investment's $1,000. There are no monthly fees, there are no yearly fees, there are no maintenance fees, right? It's one time and it's done. There are no additional fees to it ever. Now, to make this a little bit better, how many agree that makes it a lot easier and it's pretty cool? Make it even better than that. How many would like to be able to get access to that website software without having to pay $1,000 for it? Okay. For those of you, and this is something that's on a first-come, first-served basis, for those of you who really want to do that, before you leave here today, talk to them about getting enrolled or get enrolled. We'll find ways to get you started by attending that workshop without having to pay the full $1,000 for it. Because as I mentioned before, the sooner you get started, the sooner you get properties, the sooner you get paychecks like this. These are all mine, from various different places throughout the United States. I guess it's a humble brag. The reality is I forget to take pictures of them most of the time. I had a stack I meant to take pictures of before I came out here. Totally spaced it. They're not that old. Most of them are from the last couple of months. 4/10/2018, I think is the oldest one I have up here. The most recent one that I remember taking 7/17/2018. Some are under my personal information. Some are under, most of them are under business names and business entities. And this is something we want to make sure you're aware of when you get started. Part of the reason we have 3 days of education is the way that you invest up front helps determine how much you pay in taxes also. It's great to make more money. It's even better to keep the money. Yeah, the money that we make. So we want to share with you different ways to invest through like trusts, corporations, LLCs. Many may not know this, but there are ways in certain cases where you can invest in liens through self-directed 401ks and self-directed IRAs. So you can do it with tax deferment, in some cases tax deferred or pre-taxed up front. So there's tons of different opportunity in this. Like I said, it's great to make money. It's even better to keep the money that you make. So we give you all the different information on how to do this. How many like to get paychecks every week, right? Now, I have an advantage in this that I've been doing it for 10 years. And I've been buying digitally online using that tool there for almost 5 years on a weekly basis, essentially on a weekly basis and not a daily basis. So this brings us back to that 30 to 45 minutes a day if you want to make consistent passive income. That's my daily work schedule. I'm an investor. I'm a stay-at-home investor is what I like to call myself on a daily basis when I know, and I can buy tax certificates now about 45 weeks a year. Okay? That's different counties are open at different times. This morning I woke up, I know there was a county in Arizona that was open called Pinal County that just opened up. And I know there was a couple of counties in Florida that just opened up. One of them actually happened to be Duval, the county I'm showing you here today. Another one called Hillcrest County, all right? So, yeah, so what I did is I jumped up, 7 a.m., grabbed my computer, opened it up, and I set a budget each week. Sometimes I break it down to paid weeks, depends on what it is. Bought a handful of liens this morning. The least expensive lien I saw this morning, I didn't buy it, it's still there, was $27. The most expensive lien I saw this morning was $1.6 million. Anybody have a credit card I can borrow? Now, it was against a commercial property worth about $6 million, right? It's in Florida, it's 18%. Didn't do well with the research on it, but nonetheless, you see the range. It can be undeveloped land, it can be commercial properties, it can be residential, multi-unit, it can be mobile homes. That's why we want to give you the education to make sure you know what you're purchasing before you start point, click, and buy. Right? That's why we have these things tied together. Just getting out there and get started. Now, that's why I said at the very beginning, sooner we get started, sooner we get paid, but also to stay focused on the reasons why, because it does take some time to start to build this pipeline, as I've been doing over the last decade, right? I love what I do. I love sharing with others, and because it's something everybody can do. When I first started, obviously, I had different reasons. I've learned some people hate philanthropy, some people it's just to pay off debt, pay your bills on time. Most people, it tends to be things to do with their family, I've learned over the last few years. How many like to make more money so you can spend more time with your family? Raise your hands. Yeah, that was awful. How many would like to make more money so you can spend more time away from your family? Raise your hands. Once again, I'm not here to judge everybody. Why did I know I was going to get that reaction? All right, some of you are like family, you're like, yeah, no, I hate them, okay. And I say this somewhat jokingly, yeah, we all love our families to a point. So when I first started investing, because of the hardship I went through when I lost everything and had a couple of years where I struggled to work, my main thing that kept me going is I'm a single dad. This is my son 8 years ago. This is him today, right? About 2 weeks ago. So it's grown a little bit. Just a little bit. That's my mom. That's my girlfriend, my dog. There's different stories for each one of these things up here. I'll share a couple of them with you really quick. Probably the coolest one to me anyway, it has to do with my mom. My mom worked for Kroger grocery stores for over 35 years. Now here it's Ralph's.
Yeah.
Right? So same chain, Kroger's the corporation. But my mom worked for them for about 35 years. Now, everybody knows somebody that hates their job, right?
Yeah.
My mom hated her job. My mom despised her coworkers, and she told them. She's a coworker. Yeah, she's that one. She's that one. And she hates customers. So she hates people in general. My mom's just a hater, I guess. I don't know. But she told me working in customer service for 35 years is what made her hate people. Right? Exactly, right? So I can't identify with that. I can't relate to it, but I'll take her for her words, right? So it was her 67th birthday. It was 2017. And I said to her, I said, Mom, if you hate your work that much, you've been there for 35 years, you've lived in this house for over 40 years, if you hate it that much, retire. And as soon as I said it to her, guess what she said back to me? I can't afford it. I can't afford it, Sharon, exact words. Because of you kids. Now, she didn't really say that, but I knew that's what she meant, right? Now, and I say this in somewhat just, but my mom raised us as a single mother. I'm one of 8 kids, right? In different situations, different things. They're not all biological, but my mom is just a giving person, right? To a family member. So when all this kind of came up, one thing that my mom always told me was keep good credit. And so what suddenly hit me when I realized this, my mom said to me, She said, I actually owe more on this house right now than I bought it for 40 years ago. What my mom had been doing for decades is refinancing the house to live, right? To pay for everything. So it broke my heart. Now, most of us don't know our parents' situation, and most of us are told not to ask. Or at least that's my upbringing. That's what most people around me did too. So it kind of broke my heart. I didn't run and tell my sisters and brother. I didn't say anything to anybody. What I did do, because of investment strategies and learning how to do this stuff the right way and what it did back for me, is I went back to my mom's house within 3 days and I gave her a check to help her pay off her house, her car, and all of her credit cards so she could retire. How would you like to do that for yourself or somebody around you? Right? Now, if you, a couple things here. I don't say it as a brag or a boast. It's more to share with you what it's done for me, because working construction, trading hours for dollars, physical labor, that would have taken me at least 3 lifetimes to do. At least 3 lifetimes. There's no way I would have been able to do that for my mom, for myself, or anybody else. Now, on the other side, in retrospect, I kind of wish I would have done it in phases. It's okay to do it. And the reason I say that is, somebody can relate to this. My mom ignored me for over 40 years. Now she's my best friend. Remember I said I'd come out and do this? Remember I said I started doing this 4 months ago and hadn't done it for over a year?
Yeah.
Ding, now you know why. I got to get away from my mom every once in a while. Love her to death, woke up to 7 texts this morning, nonetheless, all right? So I say this somewhat jokingly, but take it in time. But it's okay to do it for yourself too, because you can't help others till you help yourself first, right?
Right.
Now, on the other scale of things, my son, 18 years old, just graduated from high school, he's on to
College.
no, I'm all for education. I'm all for education, obviously. But does everybody know the average cost of a bachelor's degree today?
Yes.
Almost 100 grand. At an in-state school.
Yeah.
Now, no knock to it, but does a bachelor's degree get you what it should?
No.
It's almost like paying 100 grand for a certificate that might get you a better job. And it's almost a necessity today, right?
Yeah.
I'd be willing to bet there's 1 or 2 people in this room that have multiple degrees that can't even get a job in their own field. Yeah, absolutely. It's the way it is everywhere. So my son, as we're going through this, and he's applying for schools, this is over a year ago, his junior year of high school, right? I said to him, I said, I'm like, do you know what you're going to do? He's like, I have no direction. I have no clue. I just know I'm going to go to college. I'm like, all right. I said, well, academically, I don't know what you're going to do. You're okay, student, all these things. And what I was getting at is, like, you realize it's 100 grand for a bachelor's degree. I finally had to say it to him because he wasn't reading between the lines. And as soon as I said it, he looked back at me and he said, yeah, so what's the big deal? To which I replied, then you pay for it. And some other things after that. And I meant it. So then we start looking into costs and looking into student loans and grants. And that's when I know I'm late to the game, but there's more student loan debt in the United States than there is credit card debt. There's almost $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. So I don't want to start him off 100 grand plus in debt. I don't want to make him more entitled than he already is, so I don't know the right answer to this. Then we get to his senior year, and he starts talking about getting multiple degrees in areas that I just don't think the return on investment is there, right? And I'm just going, okay, you're talking about a couple $100 grand to get a master's degree now. I'm like, in the field where it doesn't pay that well, I'm like, I'm not against it. I'm just saying, we've got to consider. And he said, Dad, what's your biggest worry? I'm like, how are you going to support yourself when you're a couple $100 grand in debt getting out of school? And he looked at me like I was the biggest idiot on earth, and he said, Dad, you taught me how to make money when I was 10 years old. See, when I was so over-focused on the cost of that education that he was getting and what it was going to do for him, I completely bypassed the fact that my son's been investing in real estate for 8 years. Right? Now, my son, he's done quite well. He's done different types of real estate transactions. 8 years ago, when he first started doing it, it was his 10th birthday, I had to do everything for him because the technology wasn't there. A couple years later, the technology was there. At that point, it just became a video game to him, right? He was a kid. So you looked at it. My son, over the last 8 years, has averaged over 16% returns on his investments. The average adult has averaged less than 5%. Right? How many of you would agree that's something that everybody should know how to do?
Yeah.
Right? And my son said this to me after he said that. He said, Dad, kids going to school today, we know we're not going to learn how to make money. We know we're going to build a career, to find a career that might make us more money. He said, but I always have real estate to fall back on thanks to you. Right? Now, that gave me one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life, that we could all pass on to others, that you could all have the opportunity to do to continue through, right? My son's been pretty awesome in that sense. I also have to kind of tell you the whole story to this when you brought this up to me. A couple months after that, something really shocking happened. My son ended up receiving a football scholarship.
Yeah.
So, which is pretty awesome, but
Yes.
it was shocking to all of us because my son is not very good at football.
How tall?
You said it right there.
How
There you
tall
go.
is he?
You ever heard the saying, you can't teach size?
Yeah.
So my son is an offensive lineman.
Right.
There's a shortage of offensive linemen in the United States because nobody wants to put on the size to do it. My son, he just called me. This is funny. In the break. And he's in the college football season, right? They had a bye week this week, but they played the previous 2 weeks. And my son said to me, he said, "Dad, I'm up to 295." So he's
wow.
6'7", 295.
Oh,
Right?
right.
Yeah, so you can't teach size. So with that said, coming back to the thing he's not very good at, his first series ever playing on the field. So he actually made the team somehow, some way. He practices well. In game is a whole different story because you could see the look in his coach's eyes when he ran off the field after the first series. He gave up a sack. It wasn't. It was rushed, and they threw an interception because of it. You could see the look in his coach's eyes that they were going to ask for that scholarship back. Right? You could see it. I'm like, no, you can't. It's not. It's mine, right? And I have to tell you this: when a National Signing Day, I got really, really. I'm not the most emotional person on earth. No knock to anybody that is. But when it was happening, we signed that paper. He was up there before he signed it. He saw me sitting in the front row, and emotions started to take over. So I started doing all the stuff they tell you to do so you don't cry. You know, staring at bright lights, breathing deep. And I'm sitting there just a complete mess, just right. And my son sees this sitting up on stage, so my son jumps off stage in the middle of this thing in front of everybody to come up and give me this big hug to comfort me. And as he starts to lean in for the hug, I stiff arm him. I push him away. Right? It makes me a horrible person, but I'm gonna back it up because the first thing in my mind is don't point out that I'm crying in public. And what comes out of my mouth is even worse. I don't always get to tell this story, but I love it. What comes out of my mouth was, "Jay, I'm not crying because I'm happy for you. I'm crying because I'm happy for me. You just saved me at least 100. I'm always going to tell that, but hey, some of you can relate to that much more than others, right? So he's blessed. He's great that he has that opportunity, and he knows that's what's going to pay for school. Now, if you're wondering how my son was able to invest when he was underage, because he just turned 18, the answer to that question is none of your business, really. I'm kidding. That's why I mentioned trusts, LLCs, things like that. I still had to execute the sale, but he knows how to do all the research, and now he can do it legally on his own. And he's just starting his adulthood, right? So it's pretty cool. That's why I say it's an opportunity. And I just put it this way. And that sounds horrible, but my son and I, we're nothing special. And I've said that to him a million times. And I don't mean it in a negative way, but what really separates us in terms of the investing side of things is that we got the education, we used it. That was it. We had the tools, the training, we started using it. That's the only thing that separates me being up here and you sitting here, is we took the information, we ran with it, we used it, and we've been doing it for several years. That's what built those paychecks, so it's what allows me to call me a stay-at-home investor, and allows me to really go out and do the things that I love to do. How many can tell that I actually like what I do? Not even this, I just love my life, right? And that's why I say it's much, much different, and everybody should have that happiness in their life also, whether it's for you, for others, just get on board, right? Now, that workshop that I mentioned is the 5th, 6th, 7th, I want to say 6th, 7th, and 8th for some reason. If those dates are a challenge, talk to the investors in back, find a way to get there. If you're getting married that weekend, come to this. It sounds horrible, I'm kidding. If you really can't, if it's physically impossible to get there, talk to the investors in back, talk to Wyatt, talk to Curtis, Bill, and Phil. They're here to help answer any of those questions. It will be on a first come, first served basis. I ask everybody to be patient, because there's a lot of you and just a handful of us, all right? But when you're ready to get started, head back there and get started. We can find other ways to get you trained. We're only able to do this training a couple times a year in each area. We originated in Carlsbad, California. We now are nationwide, but we're not a huge operation. It's a pretty big group for us. We do that on purpose. I want to give that opportunity to those that are serious and want to run with it, right? Now, along with that, to give you a breakdown of everything, if the investment, 597 is the biggest challenge for you, if you just need to transfer funds, just let us know. We can't help you unless we know you need the help, just like I was when I first started. What's included in that 597 is 1 year of a helpline. The helpline is with other investors for a full year. After that year, we don't just cut you off. You still have general customer support. You can call us at any time. Let us answer any general questions you have. We've just realized that the crunch time, the most important part, the crucial part of this, is your first few months. That's where you're going to need the most help in this. Okay? We also provide access to funding for your rehabs, pre-approved just by attending the workshop. You can utilize it if you want to. You don't have to. It's just there for you as an added benefit. For those of you who'd like to get access to that website, the software, as I mentioned before, it's a one-time investment of $1,000. Now, I mentioned, for those of you that really want to get out there and start doing this, we realize that the website, the technology is really what puts this together for everybody. And I've had people say, I want to get that website. I maybe not able to attend those dates, but I need to get access to that because this will make it much easier. So I mentioned this earlier. How many like to get access to that website without having to pay a full $1,000 for it? Those of you who get enrolled with us here today for the $597 to attend that workshop, you can write this down. We're going to give you and your guests access to that software absolutely for free. Now, we don't do this in every one of our groups. We don't have to go do it for every person in each one of the groups that we have. For the first 12 of you that get enrolled here today, you and your guests will get access to that software and get access to the website. So everything up here is the $597. Now, there are no monthly fees, there are no yearly fees, there are no additional fees, that software ever, that website ever. You have full membership for the rest of your life as long as you'd like to use it. Same stuff that I use on a daily basis, you get access to. And I've had people tell me this morning, that's the reason they're getting started. Great. We just want to make sure you know how to do it the right way. So with that said, we give you your username and password at the workshop. The reason we do it that way is so you're not dangerous to yourself. Okay? That makes sense to everybody, right?
Yes.
We want to give you the tool, but we want to teach you how to use it first. So you're not buying things you shouldn't be buying, so you don't come back and say, well, you told us it was easy. We said, yes, it's easy to click a button, but you still need to do your homework. Okay? So we want to make sure you have that opportunity here today. We'd love you on board to do so. Now, if you do have any questions for me, I'm going to stick around and help answer those questions, all right? For those of you that want to get enrolled, you want to get one of those spots, be sure to head on and back and get yourself enrolled. If you have questions about dates, times for the investment, let them know. They'll be more than happy to work with you. Final couple questions, we'll get you out of here. How many of you learned quite a bit and had a little bit of fun today? Let's see, raise your hands. Imagine what we can do in 3 days versus 90 minutes. How many of you are excited about getting properties and making money? Raise your hands. But most importantly here today, how many of you agree that I'm incredibly handsome, funny, and intelligent? Right? I tried. Stand up, head on the back, get yourself enrolled. If you do have some questions for me, let me know. I appreciate your patience because it will take a little while since there's so many of you. Let us know, let us help you out, and if you have anything for me, let me know. Best success, have a blessed day. See you in a couple weeks. Thanks for coming out, everybody.